Hello YouTube, welcome to episode 15 of my character analysis series. This time I'll be covering Caesar from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I only recently watched Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, but only the first two seasons so far. I watched it a few years ago, but I wasn't really into it, but I decided to rewatch it just randomly, and I don't know, maybe I got older or something, but now it's a little better. Well, it's a lot better than what I previously thought it was. Now, Caesar is the character in season 2, like during Joseph's arc. He's introduced. He's kind of like this flary Italian guy with like a womanizer with this sort of extravagant type of personality, and his powers are like bubbles, and it's really like a unique type of presentation of a character. At first, he's kind of presented as Joseph's rival, just sort of his arch nemesis or whatever during his bit in the show. And usually characters like him, very pompous type of guys, are not my cup of tea, but I don't know, I kind of thought, this guy, I'll have to look at him a bit more, because I think there's more to him. And of course, as the show goes on, you see that he is a Zappelli, so he has very strong family ties. He's a very family-oriented guy, and we find out that his backstory is quite related to this theme, like the theme of family, and they kind of play up with that with the whole he's Italian, so Italians will have strong family roots and things of that nature. So I thought it was pretty cool. Now he's trained under Lisa. That's kind of how him and Joseph even really meet in the first place, is through that connection, because that's who Joseph needs to go train with, and Caesar already has established a student relationship with her. So yeah, they were kind of like the two arch pupils. Now Caesar's backstory. He gets abandoned by his father. Him and a bunch of other brothers, sisters, an entire family of people. They're sort of they got, they're not the richest around, but they got a pretty good family. They got a pretty close bond. But then his mother dies of an illness, and then all of a sudden his dad just kind of picks up and leaves, unknown to Caesar or any of his siblings why. So they kind of bounce around here and there without really having any foothold in life, just kind of being vagabonds. And Caesar grows to resent his father for this, and sort of partakes in these violent actions, by going out and beating up people and kind of doing criminal activities and stuff. Now all this is justified underneath the sort of anger and the rage he has at sort of not having a real identity, and then also everything that he knew being sort of ripped away from him, in the sense that he's no longer a kid, but he's somebody who has to feed the mouth of his siblings, and at the same time has to survive. Just that basic thing itself, just survival in itself, is not guaranteed for him. So he turns to crime, and he develops his strength, and from there, but he never really harnesses anything until he starts learning about all the things that he eventually becomes. He eventually starts training seriously, but that's only after some sort of freak encounter with his father, after he searches for him or something like that. I think he searches for him, but I could be wrong about that. And then they actually end up meeting, but his father doesn't know it's him because it's been so long. He doesn't recognize him, but Caesar recognizes his father, and his father is like sort of looking into the Pillar Men and like how they affect the world and all these things, and you know how close they are to coming back, because that's kind of what forced him to abandon them in the first place, is the fact that they're coming back. Like the threat of them is what forced them to do it. So in order for him to protect everybody, he had to leave. Now Caesar kind of indirectly causes his father's death, and this kind of pushes him into the path of taking up the mantle of his father and his grandfather, and following that sort of Zappelli path. Now this incident is very important because it is what changes Caesar's life. One way or another, it pushes him into this direction, and he never really loses that kind of street punk type of mentality, in the sense that he's very extroverted, and very showman, very much a showman. And I think this kind of stems from this need to prove himself constantly, and I think that's why him and Joseph don't get along at first, because Caesar has all these things that Joseph automatically doesn't like. He doesn't like the fact that Caesar seems to be a guy who uses his looks, his power, everything to his advantage, and in a very selfish type of manner. Now Joseph doesn't like this very much, and he just doesn't like the fact that Caesar like sort of attacks him, and just like he just doesn't have. They just don't get along. They're not good friends at first. Now, the reason why this is a turning point in in Caesar's life, and how much it affects him, you could see, because he, through his relationship with Lisa is his teacher, but Caesar has a very deep respect for her, even going as far as like threatening Joseph if he tries to disrespect her or anything like that. Now, Caesar is somebody who you don't really expect, knowing his backstory, you wouldn't really expect him to be that type of guy unless he fully trusts the person. So, I mean, it just shows that Lisa was able to gain his respect, like very deeply, because he's not the type of guy who just goes around respecting people for no reason. If this was Caesar, like in his criminal days, like there wouldn't even be a reason for him to train with Lisa. I mean, I'm sure he would have probably just robbed Joseph or something if he could find him. Maybe he would have even killed him. Who knows? Like, you can't really know when you think about those things, because every action changes a person, even the smallest amount. And when somebody has this kind of trauma put on them, of course they're not going to be the same type of person. But when it comes to Caesar, all the traumas in his life changed him in completely different ways. Him being responsible for his father's death catapulted him into this kind of like into this sort of machine, which is like a guy who trains constantly and like has a goal set and that kind of thing. And then when you go all the way back to his father abandoning him, that changed him into like this brutal sort of like I have to do what I have to do to survive type of character. Now his final change comes by training with Joseph and getting to know Joseph. Now I feel like Joseph is the final push in Caesar to sort of complete what Caesar's journey, and that's when Caesar decides to fight Wamu by himself. Now that's not an easy thing to do, because these guys, the freaking Pillar Men, are beast ass dudes. Like, these guys are strong as hell. Like, don't let their outfits fool you. They're freaking strong as hell. But so for Caesar to do this, it's insane, and of course he pays the price for it. But it doesn't. That's not the point. The point is the fact that he goes full circle in character development. He changes completely, but not completely at the same time, if that makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say pretty much is it's not big changes in him every event. Like, I know I just said that, but it's little subtle stuff. like him and Joseph's relationship is not forced on you. Like, you see them fighting, you see they don't like each other, you see the growth of their relationship through their experiences. And that's really cool, because normally it's like one big event. It's like, oh, now they're just best buds just because like they fought or something. But like for them, it was like they were stuck. They were doing all these things together, like bonding. It's kind of like this military style type bonding where they bond through these like horrific things, like not horrific, but like these really tough activities that Lisa puts them through, and all the training they do together and stuff. So, and Joseph is obviously affected by this deeply, but I don't really want to say what happens, even though I'm kind of spoiling everything. But I think that the way it ends up is very beautiful, because that's exactly what Caesar needed. And I think if Caesar, all right, then I'm like, spoiler warnings now, like from this point on. If Caesar didn't go the way he went, I don't see him having such an impact, because if you linger too long, and I think this is what the author did so beautifully, if you linger a character too long, they lose their purpose. And Caesar did his purpose as a character. That, like, not everybody's meant to be these large like characters that last throughout the whole thing. What Jojo really does well is not have these like side characters linger on. Like, there is a purpose for you, you finish your purpose, and that's it. You serve the story in your way, and then you're gone. You don't linger on, you don't diminish the character. It just is what it is. Not saying that doing it the other way is not possible, but I feel like a lot of authors are scared to do this, because they're like, oh, you know, the popularity of the character is going to go down, you know, the manga or the anime, like, what's going to happen if we kill off too many characters and blah blah. But the way Jojo's set up is sort of like really works well with this whole carousel system, where no one is bigger than the story, and Caesar is a perfect sort of representation of that. And I think that there is the final what stood out to me the most about Caesar is he served a similar purpose to his grandfather. The way his grandfather served Joseph, the way his grandfather served Jonathan, he served Joseph. And I think that that's a really good parallel, because Caesar is not his grandfather. He's actually the opposite of what his grandfather even was, because Caesar is not this sort of shining example. Like, Caesar is not a guy you're gonna like right away, and a guy that not even that some people his personality doesn't click with. But he is a perfect sort of reminder of what a well executed side character could be. Now that's gonna end it all for now. I'll do more Jojo in the future. I'll do more of these in the future in general. Sorry I didn't go too deeply into it, but you know, Caesar's not a character that really lasts too long, but you know, he just impacted. I just thought he was really cool, so I want to talk about him. So that's gonna end it all for now, and until next time, have a nice day.